Today we're going to talk about 7 fruits that have the potential to kill cancer.
How is this possible? When cancer loves sugar and we know that there is sugar in fruits. Let's listen to Dr. Eric Berg and Dr. William Lis, how they explain this contradiction.
All right, so let's first dive into number 1, berries. But there's 2 specific berries that have more cancer-fighting potential than other berries, and that would be the blueberry and the blackberry, because they have a lot more of this thing called anthocyanins that has all sorts of interesting properties, one being the inhibiting of cancer growth. Okay, now anthocyanins also feed your gut microbes. Like 80% of your immune system is in your gut microbiome. So your gut microbes love to eat these plant-based chemicals. You strengthen them, they become more diverse, and they increase in number. There's some pretty great, credible research on anthocyanins decreasing breast cancer, colon cancer, and prostate cancer. Now, I will say they're observational studies, but still, the research is pretty strong.
Here are 3 studies that show these benefits of berries.
All right, so let's go to number 2, citrus fruits, right? This is lemon, limes, grapefruit. Not only are they loaded with vitamin C, which helps your immune system, but they're loaded with flavonoids, one being the detoxification of cancer-causing agents. So in other words, it strengthens the liver's ability to turn these carcinogens into harmless particles. So if you regularly consume citrus fruits, whether it's also like lemon in the water, things like that, you may decrease your risk for certain types of cancer, especially of the digestive system.
Studies have suggested that regular consumption of citrus fruits is associated with a reduced risk of cancers such as esophageal, stomach, and certain types of oral cancers. However, it's important to note that while citrus fruits can be a valuable part of a cancer-preventive diet, they should be consumed as part of a balanced diet rich in various fruits and vegetables for the best protective effect.
Pomegranates. Pomegranates are rich in a certain nutrient called ellagic acid. It also has anti-cancer properties. These compounds work overtime to protect your DNA from damage. You have to realize that a cancer cell came from a normal cell. Cancer really is a normal cell that has damage that then has to survive, and so it starts to morph into some other type of metabolism. There's a lot of other phytonutrients in pomegranates that do a lot of different things as well. Decrease inflammation, decrease oxidative stress.
Now let's listen to Dr. William Lis about his view of pomegranate.
Hey there, Dr. Will Lis, and I have got one of my favorite fruits I want you to know about. You will recognize it, most of you. This is a pomegranate. This is a pomegranate. It's actually a fruit from Asia, and inside this are a bunch of these ruby red seeds with juices. This really juicy little seeds. You can put them in salads. You can actually juice them as well. Here's what's in the juice. It's got something called enlightening. These are bioactives that can do a lot of great things. One of the things they do is actually they can cut off the blood supply to tumors, so they can starve cancer by cutting off the blood supply. But the other thing that they do is they improve your gut health by helping to grow a bacteria called Akkermansia. This is a guardian of the gut and guardian of health, and it actually comes from the pomegranate. So don't be afraid to pick one of these things up and eat the seeds and juice them if you dare.
Before we continue, please like and subscribe to support our channel. Your support helps us reach more people with our videos. Thank you.
This one is grapes. Now, what are grapes known for? Well, the phytonutrient called resveratrol. Resveratrol is known to help decrease aging, and one of the reasons why someone can extend their age is they're not dying from certain things. So resveratrol is a very thoroughly researched phytonutrient that has all sorts of properties, one being a superhero anti-cancer effect that can bulletproof your cells from experiencing excessive amounts of stress that can then cause the triggering of the cancer.
Grapes are a rich source of the antioxidant resveratrol. Studies show that resveratrol has the potential to possibly stop cancer from starting in the breast, liver, stomach, and lymphatic system. The grape's skin has the most resveratrol, so leave the skin intact. Red and purple grapes have significantly more resveratrol than green grapes.
The next one on the list is tomatoes. Yes, tomatoes are really a fruit, even though you might have thought it was a vegetable. Tomatoes are loaded with something called lycopene. Now, you actually can increase the amount of lycopene if you cook the tomato, as in tomato sauce. Now, I have a huge garden of tomatoes, all different kinds. And because I'm experimenting on different type of tomatoes, I have dark purple ones, the green and yellow ones. I have all different types. And those colors represent different pigments, different phytonutrients. So I'm going to experiment on this and see which ones I like as far as taste, see which ones are not as destroyed by insects and bugs. And then also I'm going to send some to the lab to see what the heck is in these tomatoes.
A number of in vitro and in vivo studies suggest that lycopene may also be protective against cancers of the skin, breast, lung, and liver. However, epidemiological studies have yielded inconsistent findings regarding lycopene's potential in reducing cancer risk. The few human intervention trials have been small and generally focused on intermediate endpoints, not response of clinically evident disease or overall survival, and thus have limited translation to practice according to National Cancer Institute.
All right, the last one on the list is olives. Yes, an olive is a fruit as well. Olives have something called oleuropein and another one called hydroxytyrosol. Both protect you against the growth of cancer cells. Olives are like a natural shield. They protect the body from the inside out. Another cool thing about olives is that these phytonutrients increase something called apoptosis. When the cell is sick, it naturally commits suicide to protect the whole body. So the phytonutrient in olives can help cause the cancer cell to commit suicide. So that's a really good thing.
A study in PubMed shows that the highest olive oil consumption was associated with 31% lower likelihood of any cancer. Now the big question is extra virgin olive oil better than normal olive oil? According to Dr. Lewin at Harvard Medical School, there are no definitive studies that show extra virgin olive oil has a greater ability than refined oil to prevent heart problems, cancer, or other diseases. Still, extra virgin olive oil does offer something extra that regular olive oil does not. Extra virgin olive oil is pressed mechanically from ripe olives and processed without high heat or chemical solvents. This protects chemicals in the oil called phenols. In contrast, regular highly processed olive oils lose these chemicals. Small laboratory-based experiments suggest that higher concentrations of phenols may provide extra antioxidant effects. Before we answer the important question about fruit and sugar content, we have a bonus information to our viewers. Dr. William Lis, we often talk about food as medicine or as a complement to medicine. Tell us why it's so potent and let us know about the new cancer.
And the reason that's so poignant, and I think for people listening who may know somebody undergoing cancer treatment right now. I mean, look, you're a doctor. We're both doctors. How many times has a patient who has cancer asked us very earnestly, "Hey, doc, I've got cancer. I'm getting treated. I'm getting my chemo, but what should I be eating? Is there anything you can advise me to?" Right? That's such a common question. Yeah. It's a question that almost every cancer patient asks their doctor, and it's a question that almost no doctor can answer. So the typical response that a patient gets is incredibly frustrating and aggravating to them, because the doctors just say, "Yeah, you know what?" Either they say, "I don't know. There's nothing out there because no evidence on food can help," or they say, "Go eat whatever you want. Go eat some junk food or some fast food because at least you get some nutrition. The most important thing is you don't lose weight." Well, actually, science has said both of those things are not true. Number one, actually cutting down on your caloric intake during cancer treatment actually reboots your health defenses to fight cancer. So intermittent fasting and manipulating your metabolism by lowering caloric intake actually is an anti-cancer strategy, number one. Number two, actually there are certain foods you can eat that actually can help you fight cancer. And the best, most compelling examples all have to do with your health defenses. So there is the newest form, most profound form of cancer treatment that's a biggest advance in 100 years for cancer treatment is immunotherapy. And immunotherapy, which is used everywhere, UK, North America, Russia, China, everywhere, is a new type of cancer treatment that doesn't poison the body like chemotherapy does. And it's not even a targeted therapy. That's like a heat-seeking missile you infuse into the body. Immunotherapy is a lot more simple and more natural in its concept. Hey, let's just use the body's own immune system and harness it to be able to destroy cancer. Because remember, we talked about this early on, like cops on the beat, the The immune system conducts surveillance and takes out the bad guys, the drug dealers sitting on a street corner. Well, what happens if you had cancer, even if it's metastatic and spread? What happens when we allow your own immune system to do it? So this is now reality. Immune therapy is being given to cancer patients, and it allows your immune system to wipe out cancer. It is so dramatic that in about 20% of people, you get a phenomenal response. And in a smaller group of people, your immune system can wipe out cancer completely. I give an example of, in the US, one of our oldest living presidents is President Jimmy Carter. You know, he's a peanut farmer. He came from the state of Georgia. When he retired from his presidency, when he finished his presidency, he went back to his sunny state, and he wanted to build houses with this nonprofit, this NGO called Habitat for Humanity. They spent a lot of time outdoors under the baking sun building houses for homeless people. Okay. And in so doing, he got a lot of sun damage, which caused mutations in his skin, which led to skin cancer that spread to his liver and his brain. So he was in his early 90s when he was diagnosed with metastatic melanoma. Because it had spread, and melanoma is such a deadly cancer, most of his doctors basically said, this is game over. So he withdrew from public life. He wrote his own obituary, and it was about to sort of just, meet his maker. And he became at peace with himself. But then at the 11th hour, he enrolled into a clinical trial of one of these immune therapies. It's something called a checkpoint inhibitor. And he got this infusion. And remarkably, at 90 years old, his own immune system reared up on its haunches and wiped out and did what it's supposed to do. It wiped out all the cancer in his brain, in his liver, all of his body. And he went from having metastatic cancer with brain metastasis. That's a game over kind of situation when you and I are training, to actually having no cancer. And he's alive today with no sign of cancer. Wow. Happened to my mother too, who had endometrial cancer in the lining of the uterus. It spread everywhere. And we put her on a immune therapy, same kind as the president did, former president. And in 3 treatments only over the course of 9 weeks, once every 3 weeks, no chemo. Okay. All of her 80-year-old immune system wiped out every bit of cancer in her body, and she's been completely cancer-free. This isn't even a cure. This is a reset. This is getting back to baseline, restoring health, because that's what your body's supposed to do. It's sort of the combination. So remember I said that for this type of immune therapy, 20% of people have these really amazing responses, which means that the majority don't. And for a long time, we were scratching our heads saying, okay, what's going on? Because there's nothing more frustrating than a breakthrough that only works for a small proportion of people. We've got to use science to figure out what makes the difference. Well, so one of my colleagues, Dr. Laurence Zipvogel in Paris, she's at the Institut Gustave Roussy, which is one of the big cancer research centers of Europe, looked at 200 patients with different types of cancer, all getting immune therapy. And she looked at compared every dimension that she could between people who responded and people who did not respond very well to immunotherapy. And you know what she found? The difference was one bacteria in their gut. It wasn't genetics, it wasn't body size, wasn't obesity, it wasn't concomitant disease. It was actually one bacteria. That bacteria is Akkermansia muciniphila. Now, this is out of the 39 trillion bacteria in the body. This one has been studied and it's stuck out. It's kind of like finding a fossil in the hillside. There's probably a lot of fossils, but she found this one. This bacteria was present in responders. And if you had this, you responded to immune therapy and had a better outcome with cancer. And if you didn't have it, man, your outcome was not good. So how do you get this bacteria to grow? Well, it turns out it's all about your diet, because there's no probiotic you can take for Akkermansia. Akkermansia can be grown. You can grow Akkermansia in your gut by having by eating foods that help your gut secrete mucus. Now, that sounds disgusting to a lot of people. It's gross, mucousy gut. But in fact, our gut naturally secretes mucus, just like our mouth normally secretes saliva. And this bacteria, Akkermansia, its full name is Akkermansia is just its first name. Its last name is muciniphila. So Akkermansia muciniphila means it loves to grow mucus.
Yeah.
So when you actually eat foods like pomegranates, or pomegranate juice, or cranberries, or Concord grapes, or the juice from these, it prompts your gut to secrete healthy mucus. It's kind of like fertilizer in the soil. Your garden's going to love to grow better. That Akkermansia grows there. It actually makes you a responder. So that actually is a difference of how foods can make the difference in one bacteria. Now, 2 weeks ago, a landmark paper was published in the journal Science, which is one of the big, credible scientific journals, major scientific journal. This is like an 80-person study led by MD Anderson Cancer Research Center in the United States with the National Institutes of Health. And they looked again at melanoma that had spread, people getting immunotherapy. And they found that another bacteria, they found the second bacteria of responders. It's called Ruminococcus. All right. Now, I encourage your listeners not to stress out about remembering these fancy names. It's kind of like when you go to a museum, go to the dinosaur hall, you're not going to remember the Latin names of all the dinosaurs. You're going to remember, man, that was pretty cool. That big one. Yeah, it's called T-Rex, but you don't need to remember all the Latin names. So Ruminococcus is part of a responder profile for immunotherapy. And what they wanted to find out is what dietary intake was correlated with this healthy bacteria with a good outcome. And it was dietary fiber. And what they found is that those people who ate more dietary fiber had more Ruminococcus and had a better response. So how much fiber? They calculated it. They calculated for every 5 grams of fiber per day, they got a 30% decrease in mortality. 30, okay, on immunotherapy. Now, what's 5 grams of fiber a day? This. That's how much you get, 5 grams of fiber in an average size pear. That's all you need to eat a day to make this difference. Now, think about that. If you had melanoma and if you were getting immunotherapy, your doctor's probably not telling you yet to actually eat fiber. But this is the nature of breaking research in food as medicine. It's not food versus medicine. I'm not on a hilltop waving a thing of kale saying everybody should forget about their medicines and don't go to your doctor anymore. What I'm saying is that food plus medicine, it is another powerful tool in the toolbox. And people with cancer need to know that. And so I think that, as we move into the future, we're going to be putting together this puzzle that, it's almost like we've seen what we need to do for years. We intuitively, we've known that foods can help us get better, that foods and medicine have got to work together. Why do cancer patients ask that question? Because they know inherently there's got to be something there. And so one of the things that I'm really committed to doing, in my career is trying to up the level that doctors actually have to be able to take the latest science and answer those patient questions. Like, patients don't really want to know all the mumbo jumbo, the scientific details. They're not equipped in many cases to really go into that level of detail. But doctors need to be sophisticated enough. If you can understand how an immunotherapy works, which is pretty complicated, then you need to be able to understand how a food works. Yeah, that's right. There's over 200 foods. So this whole idea that our body craves diversity. Our health defenses respond to so many different foods. So I basically put together a catalog of more than 200 foods that activate one or more or multiple health defenses. And the wonderful thing, and this is really one of the sort of the take-home messages I want your viewers and listeners to have in here, that the foods that activate our health defenses taste great. Many of them are part of traditional food cultures, Mediterranean cultures, Asian cultures. So you don't have to fear your food anymore for health. We don't have to think about taking away all the foods that we love to eat. We can actually lean into the foods that we love that are healthy for us and start there. And so one of the things that I do, I've always challenged people who go, well, I've never really liked Dr. Lee to eat healthy, so I'm kind of bummed out. I give them a Sharpie and a copy of my book, and I say, go to the tables, and I said, take 5 minutes and leaf through here and circle every food that you like to eat. And I've never met anybody who wouldn't be able to circle 10 foods at least. And then they come back to me and I'm like, look, you've identified all these circled foods activate your health defenses. Start with these, stick with these, and then explore all these other foods out there. That's the best way to enrich our lives and our health at the same time.
Dr. William Lis will now explain why we can eat fruits even if they contain sugar. Dr. William Lis, we know that cancer loves sugar, so why can we eat fruits?
Yeah, it's a great question, and I get asked this a lot. What I try to do is to make people feel comfortable with the idea that our body needs sugar. In fact, the organ in our body that needs the most sugar is our brain. Sugar fuels our metabolism. And the key is that in most people who are able to, your body is able to process a small amount of sugar without a problem, without any problem whatsoever. And so the sugars that you might encounter in your whole foods, so fruits and vegetables, those are completely fine. Your body should be able to take care of that. It's the sugars that are dangerous for diseases and the sugars that damage your microbiome, that spark inflammation, that can even damage your DNA. That's the concept of added sugar. So it's a can of soda that's got 10 tablespoons of added sugar to it to make it really sweet. No human body can tolerate that over any period of time. And so what I try to say is that, like, it's so easy, so tempting when it comes to something like sugar to go for that all or nothing approach. No, our body needs a little sugar. Your body can actually handle most sugar when it comes in a fruit or a vegetable. It's just fine. Added sugar, candies, cakes, sodas, okay? Those are the ones that easily overwhelm you. So if you're sensitive to sugar, just like you've got diabetes, you got to sort of cut down or cut out those things and be super mindful of making those type of choices. But fruits and vegetables, you have to look at the human data. Okay, don't focus on how much sugar is in a mango. Mango is pretty sweet fruit. Take a look at the human data to show that people who eat mango and other tropical fruits have a much lower incidence of disease X and Y and Z. Look, you can't argue with the science, and you can't argue with the data. Sugar itself, nothing that's natural is by itself inherently evil. And I think that's the thing that I'm trying to get people to think about with sugar. It's a matter of source, it's a matter of quantity, and a matter of degree.